When you're afraid that he won't respond, you are crippled by the fear of rejection. You want to say it, you want it to come out of your mouth, you want him to know it, you want to behave like it, but you are crippled by this fear of rejection. It almost takes over your body and you are literally sent into a state of frozen. And so you find yourself constantly double guessing yourself, second guessing yourself, wondering if you're doing the right thing, and eventually doing nothing and becoming very, very, very miserable. If you find that you are that girl and the idea of being vulnerable, the idea of asking for your needs to be met, the idea of just saying whether you like something or not fills you with horror, and the first thought when you are really with yourself is, if I say that, I'm gonna get rejected, then this video is for you. I will see you on the other side. Hello and welcome back. My name is Chengi. I am your dating and relationship expert here at the Black Swan Relationship Academy, where we teach you ladies how to present as a high value, high status and high worth woman that high quality men find completely irresistible. If that sounds anything like you, you are absolutely and totally on the right channel. Today we're gonna do a little bit of a deep dive because that's what I love to do. You know, in my practice, I work with a lot of women, and a lot of working with me really requires a lot of bold moves, because love often respects the bold, life respects the courageous and the bold. But it's very difficult to be brave and courageous when really you're afraid of losing the thing that is so sacred and precious to you. When we finally find that man that makes our heart beat at a million miles an hour, and we are excited about seeing him and being with him, finally we're in a position where we're dating the kind of men that we want to date, or talking online or offline to men that really excite us, it's very easy for us to get caught up with this fear of losing them. I want you to know that this is perfectly natural on a level. Whenever we find something precious, what we want to do is hide it and keep it close to ourselves. But it becomes a problem when it becomes crippling and you become frozen. And something I've seen very much in my practice is I give scripts to my clients and I'm sort of saying, okay, you need to say this. And I'm finding it that they're resisting really hard. They're not willing to send that very vulnerable text that they need to send in order for the man on the other side to really know that they are invested emotionally. Now, I know that within the relationship space, you know, you're taught the one who cares the least wins. I believe that on an attraction level, this is the case. But when we're talking about building relationships holistically that are founded in truth and authenticity, we cannot navigate using that principle, because attraction is not the only component in building of a relationship. Attraction is a piece. And of course, when we understand and we're healed and we're coming from a place of healed and wholeness, and we've been working on ourselves, then we're naturally going to have a sense of self, and we're naturally going to show up as a non-needy, non-desperate person. And that's going to be in our energy signature. That's going to be in our energy read. And if you want to know about, you know, your energy signature, you can always enroll in the energy mastery class, which is a Black Swan thing. You all have to see that. You all have to enroll. You all have to do it. So I'm going to be using some terms from that course, but don't despair. I'm not going to leave you in the dark. We will be working through that. It's really so important that we recognize this fear of rejection, because relationships are like making a cake. Takes a lot of ingredients, a lot of pieces in the right amount are necessary for you to cook up something truly delicious. In a relationship, you need a certain amount of vulnerability. It is so crucial and so essential to have vulnerability. Also, just a sense of distance and space, and sometimes we have to hold back, sometimes we have to show up. And it is this beautiful dance that we do, and we want to equip ourselves with education, understanding and knowledge. And so I want to talk about this very issue of rejection sensitivity. Now, I was sitting there thinking about my clients and thinking, good Lord, you know, what is going on here? I have actually seen it over many years through my clients, and I've always been a little bit dismissive of it because I know it's going to work. What I'm telling you to do is going to work, or at least it's going to get us a result that's going to allow us to know what the next step is. And often, you know, I face resistance, but it's always kind of gone ahead. But this time round, it's something that I've really been more aware of and conscious of in my practice. And this is this fear of moving forward. And I know that if my clients are going through it, then of course you are going through it. So today I want to talk about something that I coined called rejection sensitivity. But then I thought, well, Chengi, you might not be that smart. Maybe somebody else has already come up with it. So why don't you go and do some research? And so I did, and I came across rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Now, I am not a licensed clinical therapist or a medical mental health professional. I am a coach, and so I'm only going to share with you what I understand and know for sure. But more than anything else, my job is not to know a lot of things intricately in terms of the clinical terms. My job is to just produce results in the lives of my clients, and that is what I do really well. But I want to help you today. So we're going to read this definition just so that we can have a start point. So the definition is rejection sensitive dysphoria, RSD, is extreme emotional sensitivity and pain triggered by the perception that a person has been rejected or criticized by important people in their lives. It may also be triggered by a sense of falling short, failing to meet their own high standards or others' expectations. Today, I want to just hone in a little bit on one word, and that word is a person's perception. Perception isn't particularly the truth. Perception is how we are seeing something. It is the angle in which we see it, and above all, to take that further, it is the interpretation that we're putting on anything that we are seeing. So perception is really about the story you are telling yourself about what is unfolding before your eyes, or in reality, or sometimes even in your imagination. It is at this point that we can really begin to deal with this sensitivity, because we cannot stay paralyzed, and we cannot hope that if we say nothing and do nothing, the other person is going to be so intuitive about our needs and our wants that they're just going to click. Something is going to click after we've given up ourselves for the 100th time, and they're going to naturally believe, oh, I need to take care of her, or I need to stop doing that, or I need to, know what she wants. It's never really going to happen. Whether we're dating, whether we're in a relationship, we need to handle our inner demons. There's an African proverb that I absolutely adore, and I have it everywhere in my home, and it says, if we're not for the enemy within, the enemy without will do us no harm. This is really important, because what is critical here is not rejection itself. Many of us can actually take rejection. How many times have you been so anxious about hearing about a job application, or getting into the college that you want to, or a result from a blood test, and you're really anxious, but then eventually the day comes, it's in the post, the text is sent to your phone, whatever it is, and you're relieved for the most part. You were disappointed if you didn't get the result that you wanted, but you are actually relieved, because it is the perception, it is the idea, it is the fear of rejection that actually has been causing you anxiety all this time. So there's no point in, pepping ourselves up for the day of rejection. It's really about starting at the point of your perceptions. How do we even develop these perceptions? Where did these perceptions come from? And what are my particular perceptions when it comes to these issues? How do I actually see the world? How did I develop this? Because I want you to know that when you were born as an infant, you had no insecurities, you had no anxieties, you had no dysphorias, you had none of these things. You learned these things in your life through the traumas and the experiences that you went through that weren't pleasant. And because you were so young, for the most part, you didn't really know how to internalize the things that were happening to you, around you, or in any way in your environment. You only had one way of internalizing it, which was going to be somehow in an egocentric way, somehow I'm responsible for all of this badness, and something that I do makes people reject me. Or You showed up vulnerably at a time in your life, and instead of being embraced and loved and congratulated and celebrated, you were cast out, you were rejected, you were neglected, you were put aside, you were scolded, you were laughed at, you were abandoned. All of these things could be the cause of you having this deep sense of rejection. You know, when I was a little girl, my dad was my best friend in the whole entire world. When his marriage to my mom and my mom's marriage to him, I guess my parents' marriage ended, I internalized his leaving my mom as him leaving me. And in that spot and in that moment, I truly believed that I was the reason why my dad was not able to stay, because truly, if he loved me, he would have stayed. Because as a child, I had no way of internalizing or understanding the bigger picture, that it was about his marriage, but his love for me and his acceptance of me would never change. You see, as children, our brains are not as sophisticated. In fact, they're actually not developed, and the centers in our brains that really allow us to see things more widely and with more intelligence and more of a bigger awareness have not yet been developed. So we're really perceiving the world from a very immature place. So I want us to understand that many of us, even though we're in our 30s, 40s, 20s, God knows how old you are, 80, are still looking at life from the lens of a 6-year-old, the 7-year-old, the 8-year-old who experienced this trauma of rejection when they were so young, and still interpreting issues and things as they go along. So today, I want to just help us break this down, because the reason why it is important is because courage and boldness are essential for love, and authenticity is essential for being in a home and in a life with a man that loves you for who you are and accepts you for who you are. You know, we cannot create plastic relationships, and the only way we create plastic relationships is if we follow rules and principles that not allow us to show up authentically in our lives, never mind the life of a man. I would rather be rejected for who I truly am than be accepted for a version that I think will serve other people. And I know that if that is the case for me, it is the case for you, my precious black swans. You wouldn't be black swans otherwise. We are working on who we are so that we can be the best version of ourselves. And in so doing, we should be proud to show up as our authentic selves, as women with needs, wants, and yes, I said it, desires. It's perfectly fine to have desires, needs, and wants, and be able and willing to communicate them to the man that you would like to see if he's worthy to be your man, and also the man that you are showing up for in the most amazing way. Because as black swans, we're not just in it to see what's in it for us. We are always available, we're always receptive, we are always cherishing it, we're always nourishing our men, and when they're around us, they feel like kings. Can I get an amen? Come on now. Okay, let's move on and understand some of the things that we can do and some of the tools that you can use in order to deal with this fear of rejection. Okay, number one, identify the root cause. Okay, identify the root cause, and this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. And the question you're going to ask yourself is, when was the first time I felt rejection? I want you to take some time, be in a quiet room, give yourself some me time, be in the bath, run a bubble bath, maybe after your breathing session, or you've just, you're having some peaceful you time. I want you to take out that time and say to yourself, when is the first time I remember feeling rejected? And if your mind can take you there, maybe when you're a teenager, maybe in your 20s, try to find an earlier memory. Ask your brain again, is there an earlier time that I felt? And I promise you something, your brain will give you an answer, because it's all stored in your subconscious mind. And if you pay attention and you listen to yourself, you will remember a memory. Don't dismiss it. Don't think, no, it can't be that because I know what happened. Just go with it. Go with that memory and look at what happened. What was the situation around you feeling deeply rejected, around feeling, having and creating the perception, what had happened in that instance? And maybe you can begin to identify that, I really wanted to be a singer or a dancer, and I went on stage and I fell on my bottom and everybody laughed and I felt terribly rejected. I ran off the stage and I went crying, and now I will never be able to stand in front of a stage. Or the last time I fancied a boy, I really fancied a boy in kindergarten or in primary school, and I told him I liked him and he laughed in my face and he went off and told all his friends and I was humiliated, or whatever the story is, you know, whether it's at home or with the parents. It doesn't really matter. What matters is that you can identify the start of it, or at least the early years when it was still fresh.
Do you need to perform for his love just to get his attention?
Does your world crumble when you get criticized?
You need to perform for his love because you feel if you don't perform for his love, you'll lose him.
Girl, come over to
Nice Girl Rehab, 5th of November.
We hope to see you there.
It's reloaded. Join us.
Yes, ladies, Nice Girl Rehab is back and is better than ever. We are out here changing lives in the month of November. We are going to be steaming ahead with Nice Girl Rehab. It's time to shake things up and really create the love that we crave and deserve. I know that we have been doing our best this year, but we're gonna end this year strong, and I hope to see you at the Nice Girl Rehab. Follow the link in the description and we will see you on this free, did I say free, masterclass with women coming from all over the world. Share it with your friends, share it with absolutely everyone. We will see you there. Bye bye now. Hello and welcome back. The next question I want you to ask yourself is, what is the meaning I gave that incident when I was 6, 7, 10, 11? What is the meaning? How did I interpret that as a young girl? I made it mean that I wasn't good enough. I made it mean that I was stupid. I made it mean that I wasn't worthy of love. I made it mean that if I don't perform well and show up at 100%, I'm going to be discarded. I'm going to be deserted. I'm going to be abandoned. I made it mean that only perfect people, good people, people that keep to themselves, have walls up, never get rejected. That's what I made it mean. The third thing that I want you to do, that I do with all of my clients, is what else could it mean? Now that you are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, with all of the life experience and all of the life's knowledge that you have, can you think of what that same instance could have actually meant? What could it have meant instead now that you're older? Well, you can think, well, it just meant that the crowd didn't know how to be more supportive and how to react. And so maybe they laughed because they wanted to be supportive, and you know, it was maybe a nervous reaction, because sometimes when we see something that makes us nervous, we might have a little bit of giggle. Or maybe I didn't really realize this. Maybe I was funny. Maybe the way I felt was quite funny. Or maybe the little boy was, you know, just really ill-mannered and came from a bad family and he didn't know how to internalize being liked or loved. Or maybe I should have brushed my teeth that day, or maybe I should have combed my hair, or whatever. What other interpretation can you give? What other story, in fact, can you tell about that day? I want you to take the time out to write the story. What could it have meant? What could that comment have meant instead of what you have made it mean all your life? Now is for you to think, when that feeling comes up again, whenever I feel anxious about somebody rejecting me, I am going to tell myself a more empowering story. I'm going to tell myself that, well, if I send this text and he rejects me, then it's really about his own fears, his not ready, and his right to not want to be in my life. It's not about me not being somebody's perfect catch. It's not about me not being the girl that, you know, no man wants. It's really about him. It's really about his story in all of this. And it's okay. He has every right to it. Or when I send this text, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to know where I stand. And the moment I know where I stand and where we are in this situation, then I'm going to be able to make more quality decisions that are more informed. When I have that conversation with him and he takes it well, I'm going to assume that he is the man for me. He's got the capacity to hold space for my needs, for my vulnerabilities, and in some cases, my insecurities. If he doesn't take it well, then I'm going to know that God is telling me that this man is not the man who can carry your heart in his hands, and I will leave it at that. We can go ahead of our anxieties. We can plan ahead of situations that may arise and tell ourselves, when this arises, I'm not going to give myself the same interpretation I have given over the years. I'm not going to keep telling myself, see, you're so stupid, you're so fat, you're so needy, you're so desperate, you're so low value. I'm just going to tell myself, hey, this is the interpretation you could put on it. I always say that nothing means anything except the meaning we put on it. That means in many ways, personal truth is quite relative. Whatever meaning you put on it is either going to strengthen you, make you better, more confident in life, teach you a few lessons, or it's going to make you an anxious woman who is not able to really show up in her relationships because she's always afraid. I'm going to give you a challenge as we learn to heal these parts of ourselves. I want to give us a challenge for us to go out into the world on a daily basis and say to ourselves, I'm ready to grow. What things have I avoided in my life for fear of rejection? I want you to write a list of all the things that you've been afraid to do up until now because you're afraid that you would get rejected. You're afraid you would get no. You're afraid that you would get nothing. You're afraid that you would be met with silence. I want you to ask yourself, what are those things? What's that job? What's that conversation with my boss, with my friends? And for the next 7 days, if you can do it a month, where you literally set yourself up with a few challenges. Start with something easy, something that you know you're afraid to reject it, but you kind of know you'll survive it, and then work your way up. I was saying to one of the coaches, to be honest with you, nothing grows in the comfort zone. In order for us to heal, we have to be comfortable with discomfort. We have to come out of the place that feels safe and secure in order to grow our resilience and our muscle when it comes to things that hold us back in life. Step in by yourself and voluntarily, because it is a narrative that you have greater control over when it comes to how you are going to internalize it. When we don't do it voluntarily, well, God has a way of making it involuntary. And when it becomes involuntary, it feels more savage. It feels more like it's taking us over, and we're almost drowning in the fear. But when we do it deliberately, we're able to really be a few steps ahead of it. So I want you to think about, how can you begin to take a few steps to be ahead of this anxiety? Be deliberate, be intentional, be conscious. Put yourself in situations that you are likely to face rejection. And if you are rejected, and I suspect you will be rejected more than you'll be accepted, because that is the reality of life. In your whole lifetime, you will hear more no's than yeses. But no's are the stepping stones to yeses. Because if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. And so we need to collect some no's, put them in a jar and say, I got a no today. This happened today. Let's make the exercise fun. And when we have our jar of no's, we're going to figure out, how many no's do I need to get to a yes? And then figure it out in your whole entire life. You will find, though, that in relationships, when you show up authentically and you ask, that very rarely, unless a man does not want to be with you, will he reject you, will he ignore you. And even if he does, you're not going to put the meaning that he doesn't like you or love you or is not interested in you. You're just going to think he needs space to think it over and mull it over. In the meantime, I'm going to work on myself. It's so important in relationships, whether you are dating or in a long-term relationship or married. Sometimes as married women, we don't initiate intimacy. We're afraid of rejection. Sometimes when we're dating, we don't initiate a date. We don't think, he's been a good boy. He's taken me out a few times. Let me take him out somewhere special, because we're afraid of rejection. Sometimes we don't do the things we desire to do or say the things we desire to say to our mate because we're afraid of rejection. But I promise you that if you find a little bit of courage, it will open your heart. And when we open our hearts, we allow other people and give permission to other people to open their hearts. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Men want to be vulnerable too. They want a safe space to park their hearts. They want a place that is safe. And sometimes the best signal for safety is to be vulnerable. Now, ladies, this video is not for any of you hectic girls who are chaotic emotionally, have zero emotional mastery. If you know you're that girl that will send an essay long to a man begging him to come back, this video is not for you. If you're that girl who has to send multiple texts for the rest of the day, this video is not for you. If you have no emotional mastery, then I want you to enroll in the Emotional Mastery Masterclass, because I want this exercise to be for those of us who really know how to master our emotions, process our emotions, recognize our emotions, value our emotions, and execute from a place of knowing and wisdom. This video is for women who are working on themselves. So no, do not send that 10th text to that guy who is clearly not interested because you watched the video that you're afraid of rejection. It is really about authenticity, being the best version of yourself, working on yourself, and showing up as the woman that deserves the love that she craves and deserves. Now, ladies, if you need greater clarity on what I've shared, if you want details on what I've shared, if you want to even know if you have rejection sensitivity and you really want to work it through, please call any one of our coaches, and we'll be more than happy to walk you through the process and help you heal your anxiety so that you can show up for the relationship and the love that you crave and deserve. I hope to see you at Nice Girl Rehab. You better be there and have your seat, because we're going to be working through some of these themes more in detail so that we can show up not just as nice girls, but good women that are high value, high status, and high worth, and attract the best men on the planet. And I know that the ladies that participated last year are still very much a part, active and proactive part of the Black Swan Nation. They're powerful women, they're dating well, they're enjoying their lives, and I want you to join them. And of course, it's free. So I will see you at the Nice Girl Rehab and on my next video. In the meantime, do take care of you. Love you lots. Bye bye now. Well done for coming to the end of this video. What I want to ask you is, what have you learned? What is your takeaway? And what are you gonna start practicing right away? Those 3 things are how you are going to get the best out of every class here at the Black Swan Relationship Academy. Please put it in the comments so that we can all have a look. So I can have a look, the coaches can have a look, and I promise you, we read every comment. We may not be able to reply to every comment, but we read all your comments and we want to see how you are growing. And we will see you on the next video.